My name is Deshauna Colvin, and this is my IDET defense video. One thing I've said throughout the entire program is that an education is not bound by four walls.
The first step in the project process is the project approval. With COVID-19, a lot of churches had to close their doors, so this was a perfect opportunity to ask the pastor and children's church director for their approval to be able to take the lessons from children's church and put them online. Thankfully, they both said yes. The next step was the requirements review. As a children's church leader, I was already familiar with the content used for children's church lessons. I identified the specific content that needed to be made available and looked at potential ways to share that information. Once I had everything gathered, I presented that to the children's church director. The third step in the process is the design approval. I decided to use WordPress to build the website because of its design-friendly content and web building capabilities. If other children's church leaders decided to utilize the website as well and upload their own lessons, it would be easy for them to learn how to do this. The images used to describe each age category are inclusive, not just of race, but also in ability. I think that is important when designing a website to make sure that it is inclusive to all users who might be visiting that website. I also made sure to use actual photos from the children's church group. Within each age group, there's content-specific things available for that particular age group. For the kinder class, not everyone is able to read, so a lot of the design is more graphic based. For the Lambs of God room, those are first through third graders, that information allows for graphics as well as the ability to read information. And for the Mighty Warriors of God, those are fourth and fifth graders who are capable of reading but are looking for something more engaging as they learn more about the Bible. One of the unexpected milestones within the project process was designing a special program video for Resurrection Sunday. While I was aware I would be doing lesson plans for the online website, designing a special program video compiling small clips of students saying a scripture was an additional factor that I had not thought about when I was looking at the requirements and the design. The last milestone in the project process is the client approval. After reviewing the website, the pastor and the children's church director decided that the content that was available was so good they did not want it to be on a standalone website, but they wanted it to be accessible through the main church website. So they've asked that all of the content I am designing, I move it to the WordPress account for the church and make it available and accessible through the main church website.
There are a couple of things that I wanted to make sure my site had. One, it's a way for me to reveal my credentials to the world. 2, establish my distinction among other designers. And 3, altering a potential client's reaction to the work. Through my online portfolio, potential employers are able to see the type of creativity that I have. Looking at my online portfolio, it's important to have a way for people to contact you, so putting social media on the website was very important. Looking at the top navigation, you have Home, About Me, Portfolio, Project Management, IDET Journal, and Contact Me. On the home page, there's a creative header that uses my photo and a screen mask to show Corpus Christi and also Tammy CC. There's a brief description of who I am as a person, and then if you move down a little bit, you're able to access my portfolio, my IDET journal, and my CV from the home page. There's a photo as well as my Twitter feed to keep people updated on the latest posts related to my online portfolio, and an RSS feed from higher education. The next tab is About Me. Within this tab, there's a brief description of my personal background, educational background, and my professional background to include the time spent in higher education. My CV is listed online. There's an image of the CV that gives clients a quick view to be able to see what type of information is on my CV, as well as a downloadable link where they can click it and see a PDF version. The next portion of my online portfolio is the portfolio itself. So this is a compilation of all of the courses I've taken throughout the Instructional Design and Educational Technology program. There's a rotating banner with different quotes that I've used within presentations as well as my program of study. Looking below, each course has an icon associated with it, and when you click on the course, you're able to view the types of projects, material, and things learned within that particular course. The next thing is my professional statement. So here I'm just letting people know about who I am as a person and why I've decided to get into instructional design and educational technology. So looking at instructional design and educational technology, going back to my quote that an education is not bound by four walls, I do think that it's important to just look at everything that can be done, such as learning how to use Adobe Captivate, learning how to make Blackboard more interactive for students. Next is my program of study. So this outlines in each semester which course I've taken up until now and the 3 courses that I have left. It's important for other people who might be interested in the program as well as future employers to see what type of information was covered in the education obtained. Next is my future ideas. So what am I doing with this information? As this is my second master's degree, it's important that people understand, I want to know, how do we know where students are? So if an education is not bound by 4 walls, how do we know where they are? Once we know that, what do we do with it? And so really moving from one thought to another, getting away from just concepts and moving towards a student-centered approach when we're designing and delivering curriculum to students. So moving from my portfolio to my IDET journal. Throughout this entire program, we keep a journal in each of our courses outlining our week-by-week experience, the things that we've learned, tools that we've implemented into the designs that we've created. One of the journal entries was from when I went to the Adobe Max conference and learned about using InDesign and Adobe Aero. So just sharing what types of things I've learned through the process in a journal format. Last, contacting me. So I want people to know they can keep in touch with me. They need to know my personality, that I'm an outgoing person, and where and how they can contact me. The most recent update to my online portfolio is the project management site. On this site, I identify who my client is for the practicum class with the contact information and a link to the website created for them. I also have my online project management journals that can be accessed and the 4 areas that were included: project objectives, timeline, my statement of work, and the evaluation. The last part is the document that provides the overview of the entire process for the client-ready project. And so this includes each step that was taken, as well as an evaluation of my performance in developing the product. This journey to create a client-ready product was really interesting, just with the timing of COVID-19 and seeing how churches had to close their doors. It actually caused me to take a closer look at how we were providing information outside of people physically being in church. So one thing that I wanted to make sure when designing the website was why it was important to have the lessons available online. So really looking at the type of content that would be put online for the students. The other thing was looking at the methodology behind it. So making sure that the content that's created is meeting the age groups for the kids that would be accessing the information. Just meeting them where they are, whether they're using a cell phone, a tablet, a desktop, just being able to make sure the content was available. The other thing, which was actually difficult at times, was creating the content itself and making sure that it remained Christian based and it didn't get so overlooked by the graphics or cartoon images that it took away from the depth of what the actual scripture was in the message. So that was a challenge as I was creating the lessons. The other thing was just making sure that the final approval, where the pastor and children's church director are able to review it, they approve the type of content. So it is going to be a process to continue the website. Whenever something is designed, it will have to be approved before it's actually published and available for the public to view it. And so throughout the entire journey, one thing that has remained is staying in constant communication with the children's church director, so she knew what my intent was and how I was going to deliver the lessons. Now for my oral defense. The first case I chose was as a technology coordinator, designing a newsletter for the technology coordinators within the school district in West Texas. The first thing I needed to do was identify and describe at least 3 professional organizations, including background information about each organization. The closing argument is my recommendation on which organization or organizations would be most worthy. Before I get started, I just wanted to point out that there are a lot of organizations out there and websites such as Google pull those organizations together in a mind map where you're able to easily identify them. So the 3 organizations I chose were the Society for Information Technology and Teacher Education, the Aurora Institute, and Texas Computer Education Association. I mixed the organizations between internationally recognized, nationally recognized, and Texas recognized organizations. Society of Information Technology and Teacher Education is an international academic organization for researchers, practitioners, and collaborating organizations. They create and disseminate knowledge, enhancing teacher education. Some of the publications that they have allow for research to be published, as well as the Learning and Technology Library, where educators can access resources available to them. Another great thing about SITE is their special interest groups. So they have 3 councils, and each council works on different initiatives. The Information Technology Council has a variety of IT related topics such as social media, special education, looking at the African perspective, assessment tools, just different things. So these are hyperlinks on their website where people can click them and get additional resources. There's also the Teacher Education Council, which has information and resources related to K through 12 online learning, instructional design, digital storytelling, and STEM innovation. So this site has a lot of great information for educators, especially in K through 12, where they're able to access resources directly from their website. The second organization is the Aurora Institute. The Aurora Institute has a mission that follows policy and advocacy, field building and knowledge creation, and convening and creating. Removing barriers and creating space for education innovation, building the field across networks and creating new knowledge, and providing unparalleled networking, connecting educators to one another. One of the great things about their website is the interactive publication that they have with key issues. There are 3 main areas that they focus on issues: federal policy, state policy, and issues in practice. So a person can filter on their website by a particular category. They have reports, they have just blogs, contents, articles available where information related to these key issues can be accessed. Some of the great resources that they have on the website include a learn and network. So one thing that the Aurora Institute does acknowledge is that there is an increasingly urgent need to catalyze energy and expertise around K through 12 systems. So they have online webinars, an annual symposium, and just the opportunity to create community. There is a webinar coming up on May 12th available, as well as the upcoming 2020 symposium in San Antonio, Texas. The third organization is the Texas Computer Education Association. The TCEA is dedicated to advancing teaching and learning through the use of technology. Their vision is learning without limits, and their values include community, integrity, leadership, learning, and service. Some publications that they have online include a blog where educators can go and get information related to various topics. They also have a podcast. So podcasts are really great because people can listen to them as they're working and doing things where they might not be able to sit down and read. A couple of resources that they have in what I call a toolkit, because there's a vast majority, include webinars. There's on-site, they have consulting, certifications, and they do these remote learning opportunities with these mini sessions where people can log in, and there's been different tools related to Zoom meetings, just meeting the students where they need to meet the students, and tools available to them to be able to do that. So after looking at those three organizations, when considering membership, there's 4 key things that I think it's important for anyone before choosing an organization. 1, does the organization help you to meet your goals? So do they have opportunities that align with professional development in the direction for where you're advancing? What resources are available? How often are they available? And what is the cost to access those? Cost, what is the membership? If a person is a student, do they have student memberships? There's a lot of educators that go back to school. So what is the cost? And then what partner organizations are they associated with? When looking at partner organizations, it shows an expansion of that organization's network and just the reach on various organizations that believe in their mission as well. So of the 3 organizations, I believe all of these have the strengths following those 4 criteria. It just depends on how often a person is able to attend. If they are able to attend an international conference, which might have a conference outside of Texas, or if they need to stay local. As a K-12 educator, a lot of times there's not funding available for travel. So using a website like TCEA, which has online sessions and webinars, would be a great option. The second case scenario was to apply to the doctoral program as an educational technology student at the University of the Gulf. So describing 3 learning theories: behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. Talking about the basic tenets of each theory, the implications of the theory on the delivery of instruction, and giving an example. The first, behaviorism, some of the key thinkers included Ivan Pavlov, Watson, and Skinner. These are 3 people that you also learn about in psychology, so looking at why people have certain behaviors. Key concepts within this theory include memorization techniques, generalization, and association. This is more of a task-based learning, so it's a low order type of learning. There's more of a recall, and this is used when you're trying to have a vocabulary test, or you're wanting to reinforce certain behaviors. So with Pavlov, he used it with the dogs. There was a stimuli. And so one example of learning would be for medical students using a competency checklist and having to recall all of the different medications and what they're used for, or utilizing a multiple choice test. Another theory, cognitivism, the key thinkers were Robert Gagny, Jean Piaget, and Nasser. And so with this, the key concept is the black box, basically that the learner is an information processor. This is more of a problem-based learning. It's a high-order type of thinking, and it's based on previous experience. So one example of this would be talking about vocabulary words again. So the students are familiar with the vocabulary words, and now what they're going to do is take that knowledge and they're going to develop a Kahoot for a quiz so that they're able to study in class with their classmates. And so they're using previous knowledge and applying it to something new. This is very helpful when you're trying to get those cognitive thinking, trying to get those high level critical thinking skills involved. The last theory is Constructivism. So the key thinkers with Constructivism include Dewey, Piaget, and Vygotsky. The key concept within this theory is the zone of proximal development, scaffolding information within the lesson, so building on what is learned over time instead of giving them all the information, and then solving inexplicit or vague problems. So this does require a high order thinking. And one of the key things that's really important, especially in today's students, is the engagement between the students and the social cultural influence. So I am on board with constructivism theory because I believe that it incorporates a lot of the learning theories behind what is needed currently to be student focused. And so an example of this is students that work in a group to conduct a peer review. So all of the students post their designs into a Google Drive, and then they're able to go in and leave comments and feedback as a review within that Google Drive. So there's engagement between the students. The information is public, and they're able to collect that information. It's an influencer as they develop a final draft of their work. So with all of these theories, it's important to look at what is student-centered. So behaviorism, it's a low order thinking, but the student-centered is the reward that the students are getting based on their behavior. With cognitivism, the student-centered is them being able to use their previous experience. So creating lessons that have cultural impact and previous experience included in them. And then constructivism, using a scaffolding technique so that all the information is not presented at one time, but the students can build on what they've already learned and they're engaged with one another.